you gotta look beyond education and all those fancy things that most people look at because they're not entrepreneurs. You gotta look beneath it and find the core. Okay, all right. We know what's going to happen next week. I told you that the Buffalo's coming, Sobe's coming, and Maverick Lacrosse is coming. If you want to look them up, fine. The more things you know about them, the more you'll come out of the session with. All right. Projects. Let's make sure that we have all the projects in place. Okay. If you're doing a project and you've come to a conclusion on which project you're going to do, can you at least share it with me so that I understand what projects you're working on? Rachel?
So we are pairing up with the Foundry at Olin College, which is our entrepreneurship organization on campus, and then we're going to work with the entrepreneurship staff here at Babson to try to form a way that Oliners and people from Babson can connect and work on startups together, because I think there's a general attitude at Olin that the Babson people are kind of inconsiderate of us, and there's an attitude at Babson that Oliners are kind of dime a dozen and all do the same thing, which is not true. So our goal is to have a way that people can connect.
Interesting. Okay. Anybody else have a project that they've already decided on and excuse me, I hope with only 3 weeks or 4 weeks to go, come on, everybody, wake up, let's go.
We're consulting for a new greenhouse technology company out of San Diego. They build greenhouses with no structural limitations. They're like big bubbles, basically.
Okay, I know why Rachel picked Poland. She's got some boyfriends over there. Okay. Why did you pick yours?
We had a few different choices, and we decided as a group we wanted just the most interesting, sort of out there.
And somewhere there's a passion for it, I guess. One of you has something.
Yeah,
okay, good. All right, good. Yo, hey.
So we're consulting with 2 different companies. One.
Oh, you're gonna do one better than these guys. And you want to stay in first place, you think, huh? All right.
So one, we turned our market survey into a consulting project. It's a restaurant in the area. It's called Masala Art, and they really wanted a connection with Babson College. They've been trying to find one for quite some time. So we decided that we'll be there into the college and help them with their marketing. And another company we're working with is a pest control company that's found a very particular niche. The reason we picked them was because we saw our team were very strong in marketing, we're very strong in social media grounds that these guys aren't, and that's where they really needed us. So we decided to work with them.
Interesting. Good.
We are consulting for Blue Buffalo Dog and Cat food treats, and basically the reason why is because
let's see, they're at 11 million a week, and they need your help.
we think that they do. Yeah, we think we have some stuff.
In other words, have they said that there's an area that they're looking for?
Absolutely. They said specifically that their Facebook fan page just recently launched, and they need some help marketing it, and we're going to go above and beyond on spinning off that.
So you get an opportunity to work with some top people, and that. Interesting. Okay.
We decided to work with the recent Babson graduate, the same one that provides the chocolates, Chocolati. So he has a lot going on. He started up around a year back. He has a store in Soho, and newly developed websites, just how we can help consult with him.
So you start with a Babson person who is in a good location, has his chocolate rated very highly, but could use a little marketing and a few other things. Very good. That'll be very interesting to see. Go.
I've been working with Jeremy Heroes, and they're actually a non-for-profit which works with underprivileged children and how they can help them with sports and education and things like that.
And that's a 9/11 charity.
Yes.
So I would think that their sales maybe go, or receipts may be going down because people have forgotten about 9/11.
That is true. That's why we come in and now we can help them out and rekindle their own model and come up with a challenge.
That's going to be a challenge. That's going to be tough. Okay, that's going to be tough. A couple of them so far are not the easiest ones. Let's see. Yes.
We're consulting with the MYOB radio show, Mind Your Own Business. It's actually with a professor who's from Babson as well. And this radio show is about entrepreneurs who come on and speak, but I'm sure nobody at Babson's heard about it, or colleges around either. And it runs from I think 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. And it basically isn't marketed at all, and the professor actually wants us to see how it can be made profitable, and we've used MYOB with our market research and actually got the cottage onto MYOB as well. So.
Okay, now where's your passion? How did you get that?
Actually, two of our members, which is Tony and Pras,
Okay.
they had worked at MYOB over the summer,
Fun.
and they had found this
Good,
problem.
and we'll carry it forth from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to be working with a startup from a Babson MBA student, and he is starting a game, a video game for autistic children
Isn't that
and for children with special needs, and he needs a lot of help with the marketing strategy, so we'll be helping with that.
It's a very worthwhile project also. A little tough because you don't know how much capital they got
Yeah.
for the things, but very nice. Going. Cover everybody? Okay. Yes?
Alright, so we were originally supposed to work for an oil and gas consulting company called Boston Strategies International. And then about a month ago we had to change it only because they took on a really large client, and they just didn't have time to work with us. And we switched to the Linden store because of our market survey. The owners were very friendly and we really wanted to help them out. So what we're trying to do is redo their entire web presence. One of the strongest things the Linden store has is a sense of community, but it's only conveyed locally. And if they want to expand, they need to go beyond that. And that's
Sure.
their goal, so we're trying to help them with that.
Very good. Okay, all present count for? Okie dokie. Rare opportunity for you. Okay, I can either do Johnsonville sausage, or we can let President Len Schlesinger have a few moments of airtime. Okay. How many of you want Len Green to lecture on Johnsonville? My pleasure. Okay. About a few years ago, I quit teaching here at Babson. Okay. I can't remember now which one of the 26 reasons it was that I had come up with that I didn't want to do here. And then somebody came on as a new president. He wasn't supposed to come on until June. He came on campus, I think, in January and started having open door sessions to anyone that wanted to talk to him between January and June before he took over. And frankly, whether he was here or not, I'd say to you the same thing. He did a fantastic job, okay? Probably could sell ice cubes to an Eskimo, because he certainly twists me around every year. Fantastic guy, fantastic. So if you want to ask some questions about Babson, if you want to hear Len just tell you his theme, it's a pleasure to introduce you to Mr. President Len Schlesinger.
I love this marvelous line about I twist Len Green around. You know that's not within the realm of possibility. And of course you understand that this is like all of your other undergraduate classes in only 101, because I twist Len Green around. I got it. And that's exactly how it works. I am delighted, not knowing full well what it is you'd like to talk about, to just open it up for anything, rather than pitch something at any given point of view that might or might not be of interest to you. So absolutely an open book. So, Jonathan?
Obviously, you have a tremendous amount of business experience, in the real world before coming to Babson. What are some of the challenges you faced, as a new president when you first got here?
So there are parts that are easy, and there are parts that are more difficult. The easy part, quite honestly, are the basic business structural issues. This is this is a $160 million business organization. It's got a very, very easy model, despite everybody's attempt to actually make it complex. It is talented rear ends and seats, okay, and the management of the aggregate capacity. So I spend a fair amount of time making sure that we have the most talented students we can possibly have across the portfolio of programs, because we're 85% tuition dependent. And the greatest health of an institution are a continuing stream of applications of high quality students going forward. So I spent a lot of time on that. The P&L effects are actually pretty easy if you manage the tuition line. The cost lines are actually not all that complex. And the second piece of the thing we had to worry about was when I got here in 2008, I had this unique situation where if you look at this beautiful campus, it was essentially being utilized 4 days a week, because I understand that you go to school only 4 days a week. And it was being utilized for 2 14-week semesters. So 28 weeks out of 52 results in a situation where our facilities costs actually exceeded our instructional costs 3 years ago, which is, I mean, sounds absolutely ridiculous, but that's not the case today. We now operate, I think I say respectfully, 4.5 days a week, 2 14-week semesters, 2 7-week summer semesters. Okay, so now essentially it's 42 weeks of the year, and outside of vacations fill up the place pretty much a great deal. This place, i.e. Olin, is filled up 3 out of every 6 Fridays and Saturdays with fast track MBA program around all of the other activities that are going on. So all of you have taken the operations course, and so you understand the enormous impact that matching capacity and demand has on profitability of a business. And so it completely transformed the economic model of the school. So now we find ourselves with an operating model in the short term that is quite sustainable. So we generate, it's all public data, it's all available on the website. So with a budget last year of about $157 million, we earned a surplus of $5.2 million. But that requires you to include in the context of the surplus fundraising of about $7.5 million of cash receipts and an equivalent $7 million drawdown on the endowment. We draw down on the endowment now, it's about $240 million. We draw down on a trailing average. We take a trailing average of 20 quarters, so we actually don't take a disproportionately large amount of money in good times, and we're not screwed in bad times. And so we take another, essentially off of that, we used to take 5%, now we take about 4.5% of 20 trailing quarters. So the reality of this place, which is so bizarre, but it exists for all higher education, is we lose about anywhere from $18 to $24 million on an operating basis when you consider the direct expenses associated with instruction and operation of the institution against the receipts that come from the undergraduate and graduate programs. And we make it up, with fundraising, we make it up with a development draw, and then we make it up with auxiliary streams of income. In this case, the auxiliary streams of income being a hybrid MBA program called Fast Track, which generates about a net cash flow of about $7 million. It's in locations here in Wellesley and also on our new campus in San Francisco. Executive education generates about $3.5 million on a net basis of real profitability on a base of about $11 million of operating volume. And that covers both the executive center and teaching profitability. And then we have this new stream of income that relates to Babson's operations in the world called Babson Global. So the most interesting issue we're dealing with now is getting to a deeper understanding of the fact that while we operate off a net surplus, it doesn't generate enough cash to do all the things that we'd like to do to address the future. Because the real task now is having gotten to financial sustainability, having gotten to the quality of an applicant pool now for this coming year's class, which raises serious questions about whether any of you could get in today. And the process of that improvement occurring quite rapidly. So, you know, we went from 3,800 applications.
We shortened.
Yeah, 3,800 applications 2 years ago to over 5,000 applications this year to 6,000 next year. So stimulate the applicant flow, sustain the financial model, and develop auxiliary streams of income. See, I'm not used to very direct answers to direct questions. The whole strategy is for me to control the floor and say whatever I want to say.
When you hear this,
you just stop it. Actually, we'll make believe this is a Twitter chat, and I'll do it 140 characters.
I understand that you've just written a book, and it talks about thought leadership and clear action. And looking back on your career path, you've been a professor, you worked at Avampa and Limited Brands, and now you're president. So how does that thought leadership play into every step that you've taken?
Well, the basic argument is in an uncertain environment, thinking is vastly overrated. And that, in fact, it's extraordinarily difficult to think your way out of a problem in a highly uncertain environment. And all you need to do is act. I would argue in some respects that this has been somewhat autobiographical, okay, and somewhat linked to the literature. But in reality, most of the successes I've had in very difficult situations have come from taking a small step, figuring out what's going on, and then figuring out what I was going to do next, as opposed to tackling a big problem with a big step. And so entrepreneurs, by and large, don't take big risks. It's a wonderful mythical structure that's designed to sell books and sell magazines. Okay? But it's the smart ones don't take big risks, and the even smarter ones are able to syndicate out all of the risk. And so in large part, depending on action and figuring out how badly you want to do something were the two essential parts of kind of really making it happen. And so more similarities than differences across the platforms. Yeah?
So a lot of public schools are moving toward virtual classrooms in the sense that they're totally digital. And that's difficult to do in a lot of schools, but have you considered anything along the lines of a hybrid virtual classroom?
Yeah. Our Fast Track MBA program is 50% online. With every 6 weeks they come for 2 days of face-to-face.
Okay. What if you had the existing classrooms as they currently are, but then extend them to 50, 100, 200 students?
Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
Help me how to do it. Help me figure out how to do it. You know, so I think the interesting issue, so I'll give you a very simple answer. This is the way I give this for your audience. This is for 1.5 billion people, their only potential access to Babson. Okay? So this is it. This is the classroom for 1.5 billion people. And those 1.5 billion people that we're trying to reach with the entrepreneurial method, okay, to be able to engage in productive activity, earn under $2 a day. Right? So you sit there and say, well, how in heaven's name am I going to build a business model on accessing 1.5 billion people who earn less than $2 a day? And the answer is pretty simple, which is only 10 cents a year. Okay? So if I get 10 cents a year from some population of the 1.5 billion people, some subsegment of it, I have enough money to actually not only produce content, okay, but continue to generate new and evolving content and actually directly track our ability to have impact in a much broader context. So I do believe mobility is the transformational technology. Computers, you're all saying with computers, it's yesterday's news. Okay? This is where it is all at. The ability to reconfigure what we do for direct mobility transfer is the future of being able to reach large numbers of people both efficiently and effectively. And my job is to say, make sure not only can I figure out that, but how can, in a world where I can actually deliver that for 10 cents a person and make money on it, how do I justify charging you $54,000 a year? And the reality is to differentiate in a meaningful way the place-based total experience of a place like Babson against the content-based curriculum that is relegated to direct online education. It's an interesting tension. So the better we do in giving you a place-based education, the more reputational capital I have to legitimize getting out in this space. The better I do in having an impact on people in the world doing this, the more I threaten the place-based education that I used to be able to do this. So it's interesting.
Okay, but in a sense, you're also not in control of a lot of that.
I'm not in control of the technology-based evolution. That's number one. Number two, there are people who are 100% committed to this technology, who are unburdened by a physical plant, and who are unburdened by the existence of a faculty that has lifetime employment. Okay? What I need to do is turn what they consider to be a burden into a differentiating asset that they can't compete against. Really interesting problem. Yeah?
In regards to leadership, I know that there's a lot of faculty members at Babson, both who are new employees and Babson members who have worked here for 15, 20 years.
Yep.
Now, since times are always changing and technology is always changing, even education is always changing, how do you balance, and allocate resources properly from rewarding like old employees versus bringing in new blood?
Yeah.
I just ask that because, do you prefer kind of retraining old employees that have shown loyalty to the school, or would you rather bring in?
Well, I don't have a lot of degrees of freedom around that. So these are essentially faculty-centric institutions, and there's a process essentially of 6 years of life around here leading to a judgment as to whether a traditional faculty member is worthy of lifetime employment. Okay? And not only are they eligible for lifetime employment, but in the United States, for those folks who have lifetime employment, there's no mandatory retirement. So right now, I have 36% of my 110 tenured faculty, so 110 to 180 or so are tenured. Okay? So of that 110, I have 36 who, if they were regular employees in a regular organization, would be reaching some regular version of a retirement age in the next 5 years. You notice how I talk about it, because there are legal prohibitions on me saying anything other than that. And so the interesting issue is, how do I provide an appropriate level of incentives and support for people who have that level of seniority and that chronological age, who can move on to other things in their lives, while at the same time continuing to maintain and support the enthusiasm and excitement of people who have continuously reinvented themselves and who are excited by that challenge, because it's not driven entirely by chronology. So the second piece of that is, if you assume that 35% of my faculty are likely to transition over the next 5 years, the question then becomes one of, who do I replace them with? And so this fundamental question of the faculty of the future, the skill sets they bring, the capacity they bring, there are 3 things I can tell you at the core are required. One, the evolution of this student body. Okay, this is the most intentionally diverse undergraduate student body in the United States. 28% non-US from 74 countries. The demography of the American population strikingly different than that of 15 years ago. 29% students of color, 47% women. It's a radically different place than the place they signed up to teach in and signed up to play in. So you need to have a faculty that is both knowledgeable, experienced, and committed to both globalization and diversity, because that's just a reality. And that's not everybody. The second piece of it is you need a faculty that is excited about potentiality for dramatic increases in technology-enabled learning. And I'm not saying technology-driven learning, I'm saying technology-enabled learning. Because all of your learning will be facilitated by technology on a go-forward basis. The third piece of it is you need a faculty that's quite comfortable with shifting its orientation from their teaching to your learning. Okay? So the shift in the modality from a faculty that was committed to, quote, teaching, to an environment that's committed to actually building student learning is more than a subtle transition. So those are the 3 things that we're dealing about in a world where there are legal issues, there are all sorts of other prohibitions, there's no mandatory requirement, and the nature of what we call scholarship, okay, is changing radically as well. So all of those things converging, again, lead to an opportunity for what I call high-quality conversations on difficult issues.
This is a personal question, perhaps.
Sure.
A bit odd, but were you always such a good speaker?
Yes.
I was impressed the other day that I went to film you. 30 seconds, one take.
Johnny, one take. Yeah, yeah. So you know, as I tell the trustees, the one gift I have that masks all of my other inadequacies is I can talk good, and I can cover up whether or not I know something about it by talking fast so you can't follow what I'm saying. Okay? So I can talk good, and I can talk fast, and I can get through an entire paragraph on a single breath. So I can get your attention. Now the question is, what do I do with it? Okay? So it's an overused strength. Okay? So if push comes to shove in any situation, the first thing I go to is, can I actually charm them and engage them in a conversation? Sometimes it's a substitute for doing something. Or to give me enough time to think about what the heck we want to do. But it's a gift, and I doubt I would be anywhere near as effective without it. Yeah.
Alex, you're absolutely right.
I want to do the role play with you. Say I'm a professor that you're pitching to get into the college.
Yes.
What would you say to me if I have Harvard, Stanford, and Babson pitching?
Oh, so it's simple, okay? So if you have Harvard, Stanford, and Babson pitching against you, the question fundamentally is, what do you want to do with your life? Okay? So there's no question the nature of the offer that you will get from Harvard and Stanford will be substantially more lucrative, will require you to do substantially less teaching, will put substantially more commitment on your ability to do research which might or might not be meaningful to any manager anywhere. Okay? Okay? But that's the game. They play the game very well. I did it for 23 years. I'm as good as anybody else in doing that. I'm just not interested in it now. You know, everybody goes through phases of their life where you actually figure out that what you did and you were very good at, essentially, is meaningless. So I sit back and say, the bottom line is we have the most interesting and intentionally diverse undergraduate student population in the world. We are absolutely committed to their ability to develop their capacity to take action in the face of uncertainty. And we keep score every day. So if you are in fact interested fundamentally in being directly involved in changing lives, okay? In changing lives with an absolute commitment to your interaction with students takes precedence over everything else in your career, this is a great place. If you're ambivalent about it, go to Harvard and Stanford. And call us when you don't get it.
I gotta tell you, I heard that speech about 15 minutes ago.
You mentioned in your book, and you just mentioned that you focus very strongly on converting thought into action. What is one way you felt is very effective in doing that?
Well, I don't convert thought into action, I don't think. I mean, so I want to be clear about that. The issue is, what I'm arguing is, I'll give you an example. Okay, so we'll just do it. I can actually give an example that might be useful.
As long as you keep it clean.
I'll keep it going. So you all know Indiana Jones, right? Okay. So let's suppose you are the Indiana Jones character, and you've been, walking around, and all of a sudden you have fallen in a hole. Okay. So you've fallen in a hole. It's incredibly dark. You have absolutely no idea where you are, and the only thing you know is your foot, your left foot, is on something that seems somewhat stable, and your right foot is on something that appears to be quite squishy. You know nothing else. How do you get out? Whoa, step on the stable. Wait. So you're going to put my other foot on the stable thing. Now you've done that. Okay, now what do I do?
I'm going to try and jump.
You're going to try and jump. Now, how did you come to that conclusion?
Try and get out of the hole, because I know that I've fallen. So if I try and jump...
You know that you fall. See, you're thinking too much, aren't you? Right? So right now, so all you've done is you've gotten this foot over here, and now you're ready to jump. I mean, you can't. I mean, you actually have a death wish, don't you? No, so what are you going to do?
It doesn't matter what path you take.
What?
It doesn't matter what path you take. You're gonna take if you don't know where you're going.
That sounds great, but what do we do now?
It doesn't matter.
I'm right here. I now got 2 feet together. What do I do?
It doesn't matter because you don't know where you're going.
What do you mean it doesn't matter? I want to get out.
Do whatever because it doesn't matter.
But it does matter, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you don't know where you.
I want to get out. Come on.
Use your hands.
Use your hand. Well, how am I going to use my hands? Okay, so I'm moving my hands around and seeing what happens, okay? So I've moved my hands around and I see what happens. Nothing happens. But I did it. It was a great idea. Nothing happens.
Shout. Shout.
Okay, I'm going to shout. Why am I going to shout?
Help.
Okay, I'm going to shout help. And then what happens?
If people are around you, they can't help you.
Maybe something will happen, something won't. Yeah.
I mean, you can have one foot on the stable base and then feel around.
Yeah, so you go back to keep having your one foot on a stable base and you feel right. The bottom line is, this is what this whole book is about. I mean, this is really just a complete rip-off of Indiana Jones. So there are a bunch of things you haven't thought about. Okay, first of all, what have I got on me? Okay, so normally, people immediately say, oh my God, he must have an iPhone. Put it on flashlight. Right? And so the first question relative to entrepreneurs, the first question for taking smart action is, what do you have? Who are you? What do you know, and what do you have? What are the means that you have available to help you through running a business, solving a problem, or moving forward? What do you normally learn in business school? Not what are the means that I have. What's the goal? Everybody gets, what's the big picture? What's the end point I'm trying to get to? No. I mean, because what ends up happening, the enormity of some of the end points that people end up choosing to care about is so dwarfed. I mean, just so dwarfs your capacity to act. I want to end global poverty. Well, shit, what do I do now? Right? I want to end global warming, right? What do I do now? The reality is, what are you going to do next? So what do I have at my disposal? The second is, how much do you care about it, okay? What are you willing to pay to play? How much of a risk are you going to take? You know, jumping is a pretty big risk in that environment. On the other hand, just taking a little step, you know, checking things out, generally is what someone would do. Using your asset, using voice, okay? Another part of the equation. Well, it turns out this is what entrepreneurs do. They figure out who they are, what they have, and what they know. They figure out how badly and how much they care about the situation, and quite honestly, what they're willing to pay to play in terms of their money, the opportunity cost, reputational capital, right? All of their uses of time. And having decided that, all of a sudden, the end goal and the classical opportunity cost and the classic expected return analysis you get in a finance class becomes irrelevant. Have you ever kind of sat in an exercise now where you're taking a finance exercise and you're actually trying to calculate an expected value on nonsensical numbers? I mean, have you ever done that? And then they tell you in finance, well, what you can do is you can adjust for uncertainty by putting in a risk-adjusted beta. That's what will happen in your second or third finance class. And then the question is, what happens when the uncertainty is even higher than being able to compensate with the risk-adjusted beta? They keep saying, well, we'll keep figuring out a way to deal with it. Well, you can't figure out a way to deal with it. It's just a completely nonsensical concept. And when you move it to your illogical extreme of an unknowable situation, and the only thing you can do is act. So it's not about thinking your way into acting, it's actually acting your way into thinking. It is at the core, and I use this to be provider, teaching you to become productively stupid. No, and I'm quite deliberate about the word, productively stupid. Instead of telling me what it is that you think you're supposed to know, so that you regurgitate stuff in a universe that we already know stuff, how about asking interesting questions and engage in action that designs to discover what's going on, discover what you don't know, as opposed to regurgitate what you do know. Yeah?
So,
looking back,
last one.
Looking back in time, what was the, I guess, most useful thing that you learned while at Brown University?
Most useful thing I learned at Brown University.
Yeah.
I went to Brown University in 1969. Okay? Now, most of you don't know much about 1969, but it was a weird time in America. And Brown had just introduced what was called the new curriculum. And there, as opposed to Babson, at Brown, everything was optional. Right? Everything was optional. There were no grades, okay? And everything was done satisfactory, no credit. So if you actually, quote, flunked a course in an environment where there are no grades, it never appeared on your transcript, because transcripts were just records of accomplishment. And you sit there and say, wow, that would be so cool. I had nowhere near the maturity. This goes back to the concept about empowerment. I had nowhere near the maturity to be empowered to take responsibility for my own education when I was 17 years old. Nowhere. And I could be responsible for all sorts of things, but I do believe the faculty and the institution actually has a responsibility to frame aspects of the educational process in ways that Brown never did. And so, for me, my conclusion coming out of there is I figured it out, okay? I figured it out, but it was painful, okay? And it was not at all linear, and it was very messy, okay? But it was not the most efficient way to actually develop the capacity to learn. It really wasn't. So I think the issue of whether it's with my children, quite honestly, 3 daughters, or actually the thoughts about an institution like this, or 20+ years in Harvard Business School, the issue is I actually believe I know something you don't know, okay? And I shouldn't give up all aspects of the engagement when I actually know something that can help you to be more effective and more productive more quickly than discovering it painfully on your own. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Again, you know, you'd love to have Len here for the whole 3 hours, but we promised just something else, and Wes and Cindy came all the way up from New Jersey. Okay, and it's important that this aspect of it. So again, you might think that, okay, Len and Cindy and Wes, that should we give these people a break or something? But if they want a break, they'll ask for a break. If they don't want a break, they're going to be engaged in this thing. We can stay with it for 3 hours because we enjoy this. Okay? And you know, Len, you said this last thing, and then you were on about 2 minutes. Ready? Okay. All right. I actually believe that the empowerment works, okay? So I'm going to leave it to you guys, okay? They take over the class. You guys decide what you want to do for the final. Okay, I'll go with anything you want to go with. Okay, I'm telling Len that you're a great class, but again, you got a lot of different exams. What that means the second week in December. Just do whatever you want to do. Okay.
Alrighty, so we have two things that we can, kind of decide on our own. So the first is whether we want an open or closed book exam for the final. So can I have hands in favor of open book? Closed book? Oh, okay, lovely. Alright, and then the second thing that we can choose is whether we want, the first half of the book, the second half of the book, or the entire book.
You did the full book.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Accumulated.
Okay, wow.
No.
Alright, well, I'll go tell him.
Whatever you guys decide, you decide.
They want both full material.
All 30 chapters?
Yeah. Same.
Curve or no curve?
No curve.
You guys are going to study your ass off. Okay. I'm going to make it tough because I have a reputation to keep. Okay. Tomorrow, okay, the Thursday class is going to have 2 hours of Cindy and Wes because there's so many different things involved, and we're going to condense it in an hour because it, wasn't available 2 weeks ago and it was available this week, and I want you to get some sent here, and I want you to get some of what he's doing. So, we're going to condense it, so I really want some real activity in this thing, okay? I can either go through the case, Cindy, with you, or you can do your thing. You have the hour to do anything you want. They've read the case, they've submitted the answers, they're telling you what to do, okay? All the guys said Wes should take over because women can't lead, okay? They said stick with your core competency, okay? Because what do you know about anything else other than your core competency? They can't understand how you had more, that you can handle men when everybody gets this opinion that there's a glass ceiling and difficulty and what have you, and why would, okay, so there's a whole bunch of questions they got. They're a great group, and what they normally do is they just throw questions at each other, but it's your hour.
I want to hear it.
It's your hour, okay? You can either bring your chairs up, do anything you want, okay? I've known these people for a number of years. I've had the opportunity to work with them. They have grown this thing. It's just a fantastic story. Weston.
Hey guys. Hey, Len, I appreciate it coming after a very articulate, vibrant, well-known speaker, and we'll try to do our best here to keep the class entertained. And yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm a pretty good speaker in my days as well, and it comes in handy in city as well. So you had, Len, you talked about the cases. You had some recommendations. You had some questions. You're going to see diverse personality of how Cindy and I operate our businesses. We complement each other extremely well, and we think that's one of the reasons why not only one business we have and a few other businesses we have have been doing very well and very successful. So, let's have some questions. Group 5.
No, you answer the questions now. You want to articulate what some of the conclusions you came and why you came to them.
So let's repeat the question and come with your conclusion.
So for the, you were thinking of opening a veterinary. We had the idea of having an application for it on your phone because it was related to you actually owning the business versus the vet owning the business. So we thought that an application on an iPhone would be good. You know, like you have doctors or help or any feedback that you need is on an application. We thought that you could change this into a sort of veterinary app. Did you get to see that at all?
So you mean just like feedback from services that were provided at the hospital, or an application for, I'm not following, an application for employment to the hospital?
Well, basically, we are given the question that we had to do some out-of-the-box thinking for you to basically relate the two operations that you wanted to do. One was the pet boutique and the other one was the veterinary, which your brother is. So we decided that let's create an app that would basically monitor pets. It's something that's revolutionary in the pet industry where the owner of the pet could really go on this app and not only see the health aspects of it, which will be uploaded by the vet, but also the catalog that you have in your pet boutique. So you can get your online buying through this app and sort of develop this profile for the pet.
Yeah, that's interesting. We haven't melded together the two too much yet. The e-commerce for the boutique is going live very shortly. So aside from buying in the store, you'll be able to buy online. And just a little story, my brother just wants to be a veterinarian. And this whole boutique idea was like, I don't want anything, that's like going to the doctor's office to buy your clothes was his whole thing on it. So I've had to slowly but surely, meld him to the idea. And to be honest, the boutique is not right next to the animal hospital. Originally we were going to do that, but then we decided to open it in a little busier, a little more affluent area because it is pretty upscale. So eventually we'll be doing, more handshaking between the two. We are doing a little bit, yeah, that's interesting. So they can have everything online.
Yeah, and of course you're going to find this group is more and more way out there.
Yeah.
You're going to start. Now you're going to start. Okay, first question is always a tough one.
Okay, go ahead.
Repeat the question and then you're...
So the question was, how do you separate business and personal, especially when you go home at night or go on vacation? And what I thought is that it's not necessarily that you need to separate business and personal when you become so passionate about your business and your business is now personal. So I want to know what you guys think about it.
It is in our house we have a daughter who's a sophomore at Lehigh. We have a son who's a sophomore in high school. And our passion in our house is talking about businesses, talking to the entrepreneurship, the challenges we have, and applying them to all the businesses and the future businesses that our 15-year-old son wants to develop. He's already have a web store and everything else is 15. I said, let's go get the domain name. And it's very common. It's just a really passionate thing within inside our house.
It's what they grew up with.
And so the challenges of the day, if you come across a challenge of the day, in the older days, I was saying, when we were, Cindy was employee number 1, Wes was employee number 2 and 3, and things like that, it was a pretty consuming thing. And over the years, we're now really able to pick and choose those conversations, and now our conversations are not as much as the nuts and bolts of what happened in this industry, this business, but more entrepreneurship of what's going on, and we actually find that a more healthy dialogue that's going on.
It used to be tougher when in its infancy,
Yep.
because we were so stressed and having to do everything. Now, in each business, we have staff that run the businesses, so we're not as glued to the day-to-day like we have been in the past. So it's more of a high-level operations looking down type of situation, and we're not dealing with the day-to-day fires.
At what point did you think Ashley showed some interest in entrepreneurship?
Probably late high school,
Correct.
early college, especially now that she's in the business school at Lehigh. She very much sees the light. Oh, this is what they were always talking about, or those kinds of things. So as she matured, Trevor's seen it a little earlier.
13. So Trevor saw it, formed his business, Winter Chills at 13.
Yes.
Going back to the veterinarian business, our group thought that to succeed in business, you really have to answer those customer pains. And as pet owners ourselves, one of the things we realized is a lot of pet owners don't want to take their animals to the vet unless they have to because it's so costly. Unlike people insurance or going to the hospital, you have that insurance card that you kind of flash and that waives you a lot of your fees, unlike a lot of veterinary practices. So what we thought is partnering with the insurance companies that you can get animal insurance, but why not make it that same type of experience for your customers, where they come in with their insurance and then you have the deals worked out so that the insurance company pays for a lot of it. So when the customers come in, it's not that, oh my God, I now have to spend $1,000, $2,000 on this operation. It's, oh, you know, I'll have a copay and just, you know, kind of get in and out and get my
That's a toughie because just the administration overhead on something like that.
There is pet insurance already out there.
There is pet insurance out there. It's not as widely seen as there are others. But instead of the pet insurance, we do things like we offer care credit, which is 18 months interest-free financing. So basically, if somebody is approved for care credit when they come in, we'll take the care credit card, and basically for a 5% fee, the care credit pays us and then puts them on interest-free financing, so they pay $100 a month or something of the sort. We happen to be in a pretty good area, so it goes with demographics of the different areas as well. So that whole insurance thing is a big issue and a little tough.
If you think about when you go to-
It'd be hard to take on ourselves.
Yeah.
It'd have to be a widespread national type of insurance.
Again, Alex, what you always have to do is you have an idea, and then you say, does it work within the demographics of where you are? So it's a good idea, but it doesn't fit the demographics because it's a better alternative that gets them the money faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be in, you don't go to a doctor, and if you don't have insurance, the doctor's sitting there trying to sell you insurance, right? So that's the same way we're sitting in the veterinarians. We don't want to sit here, oh, by the way, let me start selling you insurance. It just has that rub to it. So you got to make it available, but you don't want to get into that.
We just try to work with people, but for the most part, people pay with credit card or use their credit. There's a question over here.
How did you get around the ownership issue?
Interesting.
Most challenge.
In the state of New Jersey, only a veterinarian can own a veterinary hospital. So the question is, how do we get around that? Well, we got around that because when we bought the hospital, yes, my brother is a veterinarian. But again, like I said before, all he's interested in is being a doctor. He's got no business sense, no marketing, no anything, and that's where we came in with the financials as well. So we actually set up 3 LLCs. One was the veterinary services, which was basically the client list when we bought the hospital and the services around that, which he owns. And then we set up 2 others, a real estate management company and a practice management company. So Wes and I own the real estate for the hospital, and we own everything in the hospital. Okay, so basically the hospital pays us rent, it pays us management fees, pays us rent on the building, pays us rent on the equipment, pays us management fees, and then everything is legitimatized because he actually owns like the client list and the day-to-day services.
So the point of that was when we first looked into it, when we found we did not know this when we looked into the business,